Yo, what's up guys? You got PokeaimMD here with the Defog Rotom Moveset video guide for Pokemon Ultra Sun and Moon. I want to be specific on that. This is only going to be talking about Defog on Rotom and the Rotom forms in general, so I won't be talking about like a defensive non-defog set or a choice spec set without defog or a choice scarf set. So there are other Rotom sets out there, but this is specifically going to be talking about the Rotom sets that can now use defog. And I'll be talking about, as you can see on your screen, all the Rotom forms that can use it and what set is probably best for them. These have all been tested out, and yeah, hopefully, you guys enjoy the video. Check out the Rotom Showcase coming out later today, where I go through a lot of the tiers with Defog Rotom, and feel free to follow me on Twitch and Twitter. Those links are down below. Keep up to date with me and whatnot. So first off, like I said, Rotom did get defog in this generation, and that's that's really good. Okay, this Pokemon already has Pain Split. It already has Will-O-Wisp. It has good stab because all the Rotom forms are now, water, fire, ice, grass, ghost, or flying, respectively. And, great electric stab, couple next to that, can even run hidden powers. So Rotom is a very versatile Pokemon. Now having defog in its arsenal, pretty solid indeed. The one thing that I did find when using Rotom is that it had a lot of times when I had like the 4-move slot syndrome. Basically, I wanted 5 moves or 6 moves. Like I wanted Pain Split plus Defog plus Will-O-Wisp plus Volt Switch plus Hydro Pump, or I wanted Hidden Power Ice or anything like that. So that's just one thing to keep in mind when Rotom, when you are using Defog, there are a ton of slashes that you can use as a last move for that. So the first set we have is the NU Scarf Rotom, just a regular Rotom. And this is just Volt Switch, Thunderbolt, Shadow Ball, and Defog. You're replacing Trick with defog on this set, and the idea is that because Rotom is a very valuable spin blocker, it actually also a poison resist and whatnot, it actually can get a free defog versus Pokemon like Garbodor in the tier, or can comment on Pokemon like Hitmontop to even spin block and then go for your own defog if they're just going to go for Foresight and Rapid Spin anyway. Being immune to Stealth Rock, Spikes, Toxic Spikes, well, not immune to Stealth Rock, excuse me, I don't know why I put Stealth Rock there, but being immune to Spikes, Toxic Spikes, and Sticky Web, that's what I meant to say instead of Stealth Rock, makes Rotom a pretty good defogger, and it's really solid on a Choice Scarf set as just a last ditch move. You do lose out on that ability to either Will-O-Wisp your opponent or trick them, but I think that in a metagame where Sneasel is running everywhere and Pokemon like Steelix are also everywhere, in the NU tier specifically, just having a Choice Scarf set that doesn't have Trick, because you're more than likely to get Pursuit Trapped if you go for it, is fine. Rotom also just naturally takes on Pokemon like Steelix as well, so it's a very solid defogger because it can beat a lot of the rockers. And that's why Choice Scarf is really good, giving you that speed. You're faster than you're faster than Pokemon like Xatu as well, obviously, with your Choice Scarf. So you threaten that if they try to defog back at you, they try to stop your hazard. So it's really good at pressuring them, has that Volt Switch momentum, and then Shadow Ball has a really nice stab next to Electric because it hits pretty much everything in the tier for neutral next to Electric. So next up we have the NU Cobra Berry set, and this takes advantage of the fact that, again, Pokemon like Sneasel are in the tier, so maybe they expect you to go Rotom, they're going to double out to Sneasel. Because you are Cobra Berry, you do live a Pursuit, and you can go for Defog. You can also go for Will-O-Wisp right here. This is probably a better defogger versus those balanced teams with Sneasel, Xatu, Slowbro, and Steelix, because you're a way better defogger versus those. You have Pain Split, so you can actually take heavy slams from Steelix. You can Will-O-Wisp it. Hex is doubled in power after you Will-O-Wisp Steelix, and then you can defog away the rocks. And Cobra Berry just allows you to live Pursuit. So a more solid defogger, and you Cobra, just better for the Pursuit Trappers in the tier. And you can even Will-O-Wisp Sneasel, and that might be the difference between you winning with your Calm Mind Delphox in the end, or a Slowbro of some variations. So a few slashes you can have. Volt, which is definitely something that can be slashed on this set, over maybe Hex, over Pain Split even. But I like Pain Split with Will-O-Wisp because, again, you're a good defogger versus Steelix, and even Seismitoad. Even if they toxic you, you can always run a Cleric on the team. But Burning plus Hex Seismitoad 2 KOs it. So Volt Switch can be slashed. Same thing with Discharge. If you don't like Will-O-Wisp, Discharge is also an option. Or if you don't like Hex, Discharge is an option. And this punishes Pokemon like Sneasel from coming in on you. Or even Grass types like Virizion trying to come in on you. Though obviously Will-O-Wisp is really solid versus those as well. So Spell Tech set is a more offensive variant. And Again, just Volt Switch Hex, Will-O-Wisp Defog with Spell Tag. Hex is so strong. Will-O-Wisp plus Hex can like knock out defensive Steelix with Spell Tag. So it's just so strong. It's really, really strong. This is like a Phys Def Steelix, not more Spadef. Dealing with Slowbro, Xatu. Again, I'm going to be naming those Pokemon a lot. But Hex is also decently strong, even though it's only 65 base power prior to a status move. But still, with the Spell Tag, boost that just a bit. 2-hit killing Emboar with Rocks Up. And again, Vulture just gives you that momentum. So using it more as an offensive variant. The one that did the best for me during testing was Scarf and Cobra Berry. But a Spell Tag set can definitely be ran on this Pokemon, as Ghost and Electric is really tough to switch into for free in this tier. Now, a more offensive one can be Rotom Mo, and I've really enjoyed this one because it has that niche of being able to beat every single rocker. It beats every single rocker because they're all ground types / rock types, respectively, except for Druddigon. But even then, Druddigon you can beat with Will-O-Wisp plus Defog 1v1. It can't glare you. Best thing it can do is Dragon Tail you. So the idea is be a more offensive set. Have Bloom Doom. Bloom Doom is just a nuke. Even if you're a fire type coming in like Delphox or something, Bloom Doom does like half, if not more. Especially couple in Rocks Up. But it's just a more offensive variant of Rotom Mo, and this one's a little bit better at coming in, just because, again, having that immunity to most forms of hazards outside of Stealth Rock, and just being neutral to Stealth Rock. And it's also a grass type that doesn't mind coming in on other grass types, and having that speed tier, which is faster than Pokemon like Toxicroak in the tier. Being able to outspeed that, outspeeding Garbodor, threatening it with Will-O-Wisp if it wants to come in on you, and then Volt Switching out, and then later you come in, Bloom Doom knocks that thing out. If you Will-O-Wisp Garbodor, and you couple in the fact that Gunk Shot misses, you can beat it 1v1, which is Will-O-Wisp, Bloom Doom, Defog, Leaf Storm, deals with Garbodor. And also just being able to deal with Xatu, again, Steelix Cores. Another cool thing is because you are running Grassium, you don't have to worry about Trick, so it's a really nice Trick Absorber. It also helps out versus opposing Rotom versus Scarf Rotom, like Rotom is a Scarf Rotom check. Rotom Mo is a Scarf Rotom check, so... and being able to deal with Pokemon like Piloswine, Seismitoad. Basically, like I said, all the rockers, Rotom Mo is able to deal with. So a few slashes you can have. Thunderbolt is definitely an option over Volt Switch for more power, less momentum. Pain Split's also an option. Like I said, you can slash the hell out of Rotom. Rotom is just one of those Pokemon that has so many options, but generally you want to go Timid, Max Speed, Max Special Attack. Now there is more of a Spadef set, which is probably better at defogging versus Pokemon like Whimsicott, for example. Life Orb Whimsicott doesn't 2-hit KO Spadef Rotom Mo with Moonblast. So you can Pain Split up, Defog, Leaf Storm again, so you threaten those ground types that are trying to get up rocks. Again, Piloswine, Seismitoad, and basically Volt Switch for that momentum. Pain Split, again, just for longevity because you are a more Spadef set. So the idea of this set is you can come in on Pokemon like Whimsicott, Pain Split up after they Moonblast you, and then defog away the hazards. So it's more of a Spadef set for Rotom. And again, it does have a few slashes. Will-O-Wisp is definitely the biggest slash that I would put. But it's really tough to drop something on this set, right? Defog already takes up a move set in itself, so it's really tough to say, okay, I want to drop Pain Split, but then you don't switch into Grass types better, right? Also a pretty good water type switching as well. But you don't switch into Grass types better. Specifically Whimsicott and Sceptile. Sceptile a little bit less, but specifically Whimsicott. You don't switch it to it as well if you don't have your health up, and Pain Split does help you with that. Leaf Storm is again needed for ground types, and Volt Switch for momentum. If anything, I'd probably slash Volt Switch out. But even then, it's like, then you can't deal with Xatu, right? So you pick your poison when you're using this Pokemon. Now, Rotom Frost, and I actually had a lot of fun using this in testing, but Ice is a very, very, very good offensive typing in the NU tier. Fire types in the NU tier, Delphox, Emboar, if they could talk, they would tell you that they hate switching into Vanillix. That's such an annoying Pokemon to switch into. So a more offensive Icium, Rotom Frost can be used. I've liked this a lot versus Sticky Web teams in particular, like with Shuckle, Toxicroak, Malamar type thing, because Rotom, of course, immune to them, has Sub-Zero Slammer, so with like Stealth Rock damage or Hazard damage, you knock out Pokemon like Toxicroak and Malamar anyway, and you defog versus the majority of Sticky Web teams just being faster. So Volt Switch, Blizzard, Will-O-Wisp, and defog. The only bad thing is, or the drawback is, that once you use your Icium Z, Blizzard becomes a 70 base accurate, or 70 percent accurate move. It's 110 base power, but 70% accurate move. But it's a more offensive version of Rotom Frost, and I have used it in testing, and it was really successful versus Sticky Web on the ladder, and then versus friends as well. And just as an offensive Volt Switch. Like I said, Ice is a great offensive typing in the tier. Just being able to hit ground types for super effective damage, or even like neutral, depending on if they're like Seismitoad or Sentinel, like, or even Emboar like coming in, or Delphox. They don't appreciate a Sub-Zero Slammer. It's just really hard to switch into Ice types in the tier. Even Sneasel. Now, this is a cool Pokemon that doesn't care too much about Sneasel, doesn't care about knockoff because it's Icium, not weak to Icicle Crash, can Will-O-Wisp Sneasel as well, which is why I like that. It's a defogger that can beat that. Also can knock out Pokemon like Garbodor with Sub-Zero Slammer with a little bit of chip damage. So really solid, or really fun defogger. Of course, being weak to rocks makes it a little bit but being immune to all the other hazards, really nice. So UU defog, we have Rotom Wash. Now, Rotom Wash is a really solid defogger. In the UU tier specifically because Pokemon like Gliscor, Azumarill, I don't know why I said Azumarill like that, Azumarill, Jesus, where am I, the Pokedex? Azumarill, Mega Arrow, Scizor all running rampant in the tier, right? So Rotom is able to deal with them and pretty much defog safely versus those. It's also a defogger that can defog versus Pokemon like Mamoswine, though watch out for Freeze Dry, of course. So that's something you can also do with this Pokemon. But the set is Defog, Volt Switch, Hydro Pump, and Paint Split. I prefer Paint Split to Will-O-Wisp just because, for the most part, Pokemon like Spadef, Gliscor, they're immune to Will-O-Wisp because they're poisoned anyway, and they might even try and stall you out with Swords Dance, Roost, Facade variants. So one thing you can actually do over leftovers, and again, physically defensive just allows you to better take on Scizor, Mega Aerodactyl, Azumarill, and Gliscor. One thing you can actually do over leftovers, which is pretty cool for knockoff again from Pokemon like Azu and weakening that from Scizor, is actually run Waterium over leftovers. Now, while it does take up your Z move, one thing to take into account is it always knocks out Spadef Gliscor, so you don't have to worry about it stalling you out with Hydro Pumps or it Roost stalling you, because Spadef Gliscor is really good at doing that. So, like, it just being able to do that, because for example, you have to hit all your Hydro Pumps in a row to actually beat Gliscor 1v1 if it's Roost stalling you, but zero investment, special attack, Hydro Vortex, Hydro Pump versus and this isn't even a Gliscor that's ran, but it's max HP, max Spadef Gliscor, does 101% minimum to Gliscor, always. So it gives you an option to knock that out. Also versus Mega Aerodactyl, you don't want to miss if you're being worn down, and that is a cool option. Another option, of course, is Electrium, being able to do more damage to Azumarill, smacking them with your Electrium Z Volt Switch. You can run a little bit of speed on this, and I'll be showing you right now, but you can run a bit of speed for Pokemon like Crawdon, Pokemon like Primarina, also outspeeding Max Azu and things like that. Like, you can run a little bit of speed, but then you don't switch in as well. Scizor, you don't take in Mega Arrow as well. But like I said, Waterium Z is something I've tested and has actually worked, and I enjoyed it because, one, taking less damage from knockoff, and two, always being able to deal with Gliscor one hit. The downside, of course, is it's your Z move on the team, on a defensive Pokemon. But it does allow it to defog, and it's a great defogger in the tier. Beats most, if not all, the rockers in the tier. So Rotom is a great defogger, and in UU it's a great defogger. So OU Spadef defog, basically you want to be able to defog versus Ash Greninja. If you run Fizz Def, you're 2 KO by Dark Pulse, so Spadef is the preferred set. Also lets you take hits from Keldeo. Can take one Psychic from Lele and whatnot. You can run leftovers, but I like Papa Berry, since a lot of these Pokemon hit you really hard. For example, Pokemon like Lele and Ash Greninja specifically hit you extremely hard, so Papa Berry gives you that half health recovery when you're really low with Rotom, which is a lot of times, especially when you're lacking Pain Split. Rotom also has that ability to check Pokemon like Celesteela, Heatran, can Will-O-Wisp Tangrowth, can beat Gliscor, can Will-O-Wisp and Volt Switch on Toxapex for a bit of damage. So a pretty decent defogger that doesn't care about the rockers as well, that beats Landorus 1v1. You can run Fizz Def, which is better for Landorus, arguably. Garchomp, Pokemon like that, rockers like that. But if there's Z-move anyway, they're going to be able to deal with you regardless, especially like Constant Crush. Rotom gets worn down very easily. So I like Spadef a little bit better. Being able to defog versus Pokemon like Ashgren I think is pretty big. And also threatening cores with Celesteela, Toxapex, Landorus just naturally is really nice for Rotom. So defog I think is going to be the thing that might push it back to OU. But even when it's a great defogger in the UU tier anyway. So it might be that thing though that pushes back. But again, that 4-move slot syndrome where it wants Pain Split as well, but it can't run it, which is why I actually like I Pop a Berry, being able to have that bit of recovery. So Rotom Fan is down in the PU tier. I mean, so is Rotom Frost, but I think Rotom Frost has a little bit more viability in NU than it does, than Rotom Fan does anyway, just because Icium, Blizzard Ice is a strong stab in the NU tier. So PU Choice Scarf, I'm not gonna lie, guys. Like I tested this a little bit, and I much rather preferred Skuntank for Defog. I preferred Hitmonchan for Rapid Spin support, or even one of the many defoggers they have now in that tier, just because we got so many defogs. But maybe a Fizz-Def defog set could work, but I have not tested it, so don't take my word for that. But a lot of the thing is that on the Choice Scarf set, Volt Switch, Defog, Air Slash, and Will-O-Wisp, you need all those moves, and you really miss out on Trick. Trick is they're just really good for crippling ground types, because otherwise they just take you on, or Pokemon, they can just take you on in general. So you do miss it on Trick, so I definitely slash Trick for this. In fact, if you do want to use Defog Rotom Fan, I'm just going to be honest with you, there are way better defoggers in the tier. Skuntank is a way better defogger, and it has Pursuit Trap on top of that, absorbs Toxic Spikes naturally when coming in, so doesn't have to worry about that. And Rotom takes 25% from rocks, has a useless ability because it's already electric flying, so Levitate doesn't help it at all. And yeah, but this is the set that you would run if you did run it down there. Maybe more support set could be ran, but I haven't tested it out enough. So next one we're going to be talking about is Rotom Heat. Now Rotom Heat is pretty cool because it's a defogger that beats Nidoqueen with Fire MZ Overheat, does 97% minimum to offensive Nidoqueen, and also beats Registeel, which I believe will be rising back up in viability. It did take a little bit of a hit, but I believe Registeel will be rising back up. But for this Pokemon, particularly the offensive defog set, and it does have a few slashes, is Overheat, Volt Switch, Defog, and Hidden Power Ice. I think you need Hidden Power Ice because you're a defogger that loses to Gligar 1v1, and also you don't want to let Flygon set up versus you. So Hidden Power Ice allows you to deal with Flygon, also allows you to KO Gligar. But you have to see that it's really easy to play around, and I talked with Cole a lot about this too, my boy Cole49. It's really easy to play around because it's a defogger that's weak to Stealth Rock, right? So let's say I'm Chestnut on the field, Stealth Rock are up, I know they're going to go Rotom to defog away. I can just Drain Punch or Wood Hammer, and even though it's only a little bit of damage, you have to take into account the fact that you've just taken 25% versus rocks. You have no recovery unless you're running Pain Split, and I just chipped away at you even more. So I know you're going to defog, so it's really, really hard to pressure this Pokemon, I feel like. And basically, I think a better player, and Cole was saying this as well, a better player will be able to call it. But it does have a little bit of merit as an offensive defogger. And Fire MZ Overheat is just really good in general on Rotom anyway in the tier. A few offensive flashes we do have. Will-O-Wisp is really good, being able to pressure and beat Pokemon like, or at least wear down Pokemon like Gligar, Flygon, Rhyperior. Pain Split is pretty cool for longevity. But again, maybe on a more defensive set. But even then, defensive Rotom doesn't really have room for defog, I feel. You can slash it though. And then Hidden Power Grass allows you to deal with Pokemon like Rhyperior. You're not just letting them set up on you for sure. So you'll 2 KO Rhyperior with Hidden Power Grass. But keep in mind that Rock Blast would also smack you. So offensive Rotom is the one I ended up using in the showcase as well. Really, really fun, but not the best defogger. But Fire MZ Overheat, super strong anyway, and does have merit as its own Pokemon. And just having defog on a Pokemon that's weak to, again, immune to all forms of hazards except for Stealth Rock, pretty solid. However, Rotom is probably a little bit better in the tier because it can switch in on the grass types comfortably. Threatens Pokemon like Chestnut with Will-O-Wisp, can beat Xatu, threatens Registeel with Will-O-Wisp as well, and can defog and doesn't have to worry about being worn down because it's not weak to hazards. So Rotom probably a little bit better. You might actually move it to the RU tier too, from what I heard. But that's all I have for you guys for the Defog Rotom Moveset video. Of course, wow, I need Rotom. But of course, feel free to subscribe. You can check out the friend shirt. There's only 2 days left on them. Link is down below. And yeah, I'll see you guys at the showcase later today. So goodbye, friends.